My name is Shanea Leven. I've been in developer tools for almost 13 years. I've been at Google and Cloudflare and Docker, and a few other smaller. I was at eBay for a year, working on machine learning and personalization. And I was in a couple of other smaller developer focused startups. Basically, I've been in developer tools for forever. And most recently, I started my own developer tools company called CodeSee, and we help developers to understand their code bases for a number of different use cases, from onboarding, debugging, refactoring, through visualizations, code analysis, and also AI. I'm at GitHub Universe today because GitHub and Microsoft are investors in the company. And we've been working with them, also integrating AI into the platform to help developers take what a previous way of visualizing code and kind of not only changing that, making it a lot faster, but also fixing all of the flaws that come with previous versions of visualizations, from UML diagrams to manual architecture drawings and that sort of thing. So it's been a really awesome opportunity to help devs like get an understanding very, very quickly of how their code works, by make a change, kind of what's impacting that change, and how do I get started and become more productive over time.
I'll just introduce the meetup briefly, and then we can go on to the presentation. So welcome to our Engineering Tools Meetup. So I'm Vidal and Mickey. We're the two hosts of the meeting. We have a lot of passion in this. I actually used to work in developer productivity at LinkedIn. I know, Mickey, you've had a lot of passion about this area as well. We're just happy to have you guys here, and thanks for coming. Did you want to add anything, Mickey, about the meetup? I think we meet once a quarter, I think, currently, right now.
I think it's in all the announcements, but we meet once a quarter, and so next one would be February, the second Thursday in February. So we're always looking for interesting companies that are doing stuff. So if you guys know of something that you think is really game changing, we'd love to hear about it, and we'll try to see if we can get them to come talk to us.
Yeah, totally. I'm actually really excited about your presentation, because I know at big companies, like 9 times out of 10, in my experience, when you're asked to work on some code or fix a bug or something, it's not code that you wrote. It's code that someone else wrote long time ago in a galaxy far, far away sometimes. And so part of the trouble is just to understand what is going on. So if your tool helps with that, I think that's just great. I'm really excited to hear about it.
Yeah, it does. So I started CodeSee because of my experience at Docker. Docker's code base is massive. Trying to run the Docker container engine, Docker-D, and trying to run all of these different systems, and it's all open source, and so it's just this massive amount of code. And then you have the enterprise version of Docker Trusted Registry, and we were trying to get a feature out the door within in the Docker engine, and we were unfortunately they'd gone through some workforce changes and reductions, and I didn't know that at the time, and I was trying to get this feature out the door. And 2 days before the launch, there's this bug that no one on my team understands, and we finally tracked down at least possibly where the bug is coming from, and it's coming from the engine part of things, that if we mess that up, we would cause catastrophic downstream effects to something else. And so I actually met someone here at GitHub Universe, and they were like, "Oh yeah, so you obviously didn't ship that feature." And I go, "That's exactly what happened. We didn't ship it." That's just kind of Docker's culture at the time. If you don't know it, or you can't get an understanding of how all of those pieces fit together, Docker is such a proliferated, um, uh, infrastructure system across so many other companies. If you mess it up, it could be a real problem. And so out of that, me and the team were devastated. We'd worked on it for 7 months or so. And I think I just yelled out, like, randomly, like, why don't we understand our code? And I went to, look at a solution, to try to be like, someone has had to solve this problem. Someone has had to, figure out a way to understand. Maybe I'm missing something. Like, we can't just read code line by line. And, I'd been a Docker for like almost a year, and I had barely scratched the surface of their code base. And a lot of my colleagues hadn't either, and there was nothing to be able to solve the problem that we were facing, which is, how do I understand the code, the upstream downstream effects of things, so that I can modify something, and I don't break anything else? How do I prevent additional issues? And out of that, kind of CodeSee was born. We have made a couple of adjustments, and it's been almost 3 years, where we're now working with, big companies and small alike, because turns out that if you don't have a Hello World application, you still run into this problem, right? Like, if you don't have it all loaded in your head, or you can't rely on documentation for all of the comical reasons that we don't even have to mention because we all know them. You still run into this problem every day, constantly. And so we hope that by being able to visualize and analyze, and also add AI to kind of make all of these things better, we can answer fundamental questions of, how do I get started? Where is this thing located? And what is impacting this change if I make it? And if you can answer those 3 questions, it's such a game changer, because then everything else becomes easier, right? Debugging becomes easier, refactoring becomes easier, feature work becomes easier, collaboration becomes easier. Like, I can go on vacation and someone would have a tool to be able to understand the code that I wrote 6 months ago. Or I will remember, what I wrote 6 months ago, because I definitely don't remember what I wrote 6 months ago. So that's kind of the story of how everything got started. And I've talked to so many other companies that, they're just like, yeah, I need to do this migration from this system to the other, and I've got no idea what to do and how. Or I just talked to someone who's like, I'm trying to untangle these applications, and I'm like, yeah, we can help with that. Turns out code understanding is a root cause problem. As a ecosystem, as a developer tool ecosystem, we've built up a bunch of different tools to be able to, instead of actually solving the problem, which is, we read code line by line and visualize it in our heads, but our computers know how the code works. So we should just have the computers tell us how the code works in a fast, easy, user experienced way. So that's kind of how we think about things, and why we decided to come up with this tool.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
brilliant. I totally resonate with all these problems. I don't even remember what the code did that I even wrote 6 months ago. So
Yeah.
it's such a problem, such a problem. Do you have a slide deck? or are you going to give a demo of the product?
Yeah, I'm just gonna just pop open my tool here to show you some real world examples. I do need permission to share the screen though. Okay, awesome. So our platform, let me kind of zoom. You have to apologize. I'm still in my hotel room from the conference. I'm only technically on one screen. So our platform is modular, and we built it this way. I'm gonna refresh it because we wanted to be able to provide a solution for all different kinds of code bases. So when you're building a off-the-shelf platform like this, turns out that people do some pretty weird things over time in their code bases when things have been, built for over, piecemeal, when, people come in and out. And so we needed a platform that was scalable enough to be able to handle different kinds of architectures, different legacy code, different design patterns, different programming languages, multiple programming languages, different cloud infrastructures, etc. And what we've actually found is that a lot of companies end up like picking a monolith and then decide to go into microservices and then quickly, pivot back and understand like, oh, that was probably a mistake. We should go back to the other way that we did things. And so they end up with like this very interesting kind of middle ground in a number of different ways. And so the platform is pretty modular to be able to handle that. So we kind of break our modules up into two different groups. The first group is everything pre-writing code, including writing code, and then everything post-writing code, so that you have this, not only this visual that allows you to see all of the different pieces, but also to scale code knowledge that is not located in your code across your teams. So this is our service. I'm going to try to zoom in here on one screen. This is our service map. This is an auto-generated cross-repository, cross-service architecture view at the highest level of your system to give you an up-to-date understanding of how all of your services, microservices, API calls, third-party services, how it all fits together. So as you dive in here, you can get an understanding of, what is this particular service? If I wanted to get an understanding of, all my API calls, I could absolutely do that. If I wanted to dive in and see all my Postgres queries, I could see, all my Postgres queries. Something unique that we do called flows is a system where you can actually see how data flows through a particular endpoint. And then not only that, but you can also see all of the variations of how data flows through your system. So if you're trying to refactor, you're trying to onboard someone, if you're trying to if you have an incident at 2 a.m, you can see how all of these different pieces fit together. And if you wanted to dive even deeper to kind of see, the data for any of these, you can see where there are bottlenecks. So that's really helpful for your, shipping feature code. Maybe you want to avoid this particular area because, you can see that a lot of traffic flows through here, et cetera. So you can really get a high level impact analysis here. As you dive in, we also can show you the repository level view. If you dive one level deeper, we plug this into your GitHub repo or any CodeHost repo, and you get a visualization of all of your code dependencies. This is auto generated and auto updated. So as you ship new code, we'll keep this up to date. You can think about this particular view in 2 layers. Like the base layer is always connected to your code, but you can add any kind of annotations that you want on top of this, so that you can essentially turn this into, onboarding collaboration material. So this is an onboarding map, but this is a refactoring planning map. This is a feature map. This is a code ownership map. You can also lay out tech debt. And all of this allows you to keep on top of your code, and being able to collaborate in a number of different ways. We can boost this module with AI as well. So a lot of these notes that you see, I did not write them. Anytime you see like a triple dot, you can essentially boost that thing with AI, so you don't even have to do this manually on your own. And if you dive down deeper one more layer, pull up VS Code here. This is our VS Code or our editor extension, where if you wanted to see how all of your functions fit together. So I've got this already technically mapped out, but let me kind of zoom out and then zoom back in. So you can actually see here, I wanted to get an understanding of, get token information. I can actually lay out all of the pieces of how these functions call other functions, where they're located in the system. And I can actually follow the call graph path. I can also basically, I've already done this, but you do add all references of this function. So you can go here and essentially say, where's all the references, instead of hitting F12 100,000 times. You can just say find all of the references to that particular function, and then you can just open the file and actually start changing the code from the map. So you've got this entire path laid out from high level to mid level to low level, with all of the information kind of right there at your fingertips. So you get a real understanding of what are all the impacts that I may make, so that you can actually just start writing code, and you can do so with confidence. Any questions about any of those 3?
Well, I kind of have a question about, so you begin with a Git repository, correct?
You can begin at any level that you want.
But I mean, the source input is the Git repository, is that correct?
Yes, we actually do a combination of static and dynamic analysis. So at the service map level, we plug into your application performance monitoring, or if you have distributed tracing, either one. And then we can do the cross repository visualization. And then at the code level, yes, we absolutely plug into the repository.
So my real question was, okay, if it's in a repository, are changes that are made to the repository reflected dynamically, or do you have to go crunch it?
It's all automatically updated.
Oh, impressive.
As you make new code changes, we will automatically keep all of this up to date for you. You don't have to do anything else. And all of the labels and notes, all of these things here, even as the underlying nodes and code changes, we will persist all of that information, so everything stays connected to your code.
So if you're there and it's dynamically updating, and let's say you make a mistake, or let's say one of those functions that has all those dependencies, let's say I delete it by mistake, does the whole graph start showing red, like, oh, don't delete that, that's a problem, or no, don't change that?
Yeah, we just reflect how your code is the source of truth. But we do actually have, let me show you here. So let me pop that back in. So after you've made your code change, we also visualize your change in the context of the rest of the architecture on a code review as well. So that red line that you see, For example, here we did deleted effects.ts, and we say, hey, we removed this this file in this PR change, so you can actually see that context. And if you don't want that, you should revert that change very quickly. And we'll actually visualize every single change as well as all of the context nodes. So if there's a dependency that you didn't know about that you missed, it would be right here as well.
Oh, I see. So if I deleted that file, not knowing that someone else depended on it, this would show that, wait, someone else depends on it.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Yep.
Does your system run tests?
Pardon?
Does it run tests?
Does our system run tests?
Yeah.
So we are just a code understanding platforms, but we do help. So we don't run the tests, but we can help with test planning. We essentially they're like with this particular view with we call these review maps, code review maps, essentially. A lot of QA engineers or developers who are doing QA, they use this as the basis for where to write tests. So they're like, oh, I didn't know that this is the thing that we needed to test for. So they can use this as a planning mechanism as well. This is one of our newest use cases that people are starting to, come to us and like, oh, this would be very helpful for QA. So we do have that. And then that was though an excellent segue. So these are our review maps. One of the other useful things with not only visualizing all of the context nodes, but we also do visual walkthroughs on top of a PR. And that allows the developer to add a walkthrough for the reviewer for a number of different reasons. One, keeping the context and how and why the code changed, how I made the code change the way that I made it. It also can walk people through some of the tricky bits or the larger PRs that you might have. It's also helpful for new people onboarding to walk them through. We have a manual way of doing walkthroughs, what we call tours, but we now can auto-generate them, and they're like, surprisingly good at this point. We can auto-generate a walkthrough because, when you're doing this PR, you might forget, 6 months later. So you will have this visual walkthrough. It's incredibly helpful for different types of teams. So we're starting to see that maybe you do a walkthrough for the DevOps team, or maybe you do a walkthrough if you're the front end team for the back end team, etc. So people can do that review really, really quickly with their own context. And then finally, we have a rules engine. So our rules engine is the place where you put all of the code knowledge that's not located in your code that you want people to be able to ship quickly, and make sure that they know as they're shipping all of the best practices, rules, gotchas, compliance, security things, all of the things that you want them to know. So this is one of my favorites, is our migration process. As you can see, we run it all the time. This very, very, very long list of migrations that we do, because if you mess this up, an incident will be created. And so our rules engine is a conditional if else. So this will only run if this area of the code is modified. So and then we have a long list of conditions that you can check with. And then we have some actions that allow the developer to route things or add enforced checklists. And an enforced checklist means that the PR doesn't go forward if this isn't checked off, and it will show up on the PR like this, right above the visualization, so that if this isn't checked, everything it gets stopped, doesn't go through CI, which has been incredibly helpful for how we get all of these things together, how people don't forget, how you don't have to go back, how you do to review the change that you possibly forgot in documentation, or how you or being able to standardize, how do you make endpoints, how do you make components, how do you do all of those different things. And so we have a full complete platform for all the way from before you're writing code all the way to post writing code.
So you surely can't support all types of code languages. I mean, are you a limited set, or what's your set?
So we can support all the languages with enough time and effort.
Right.
But we are at about 12 at the moment. We're working on our 13th. So we are, let me see if I can name them all. JavaScript, TypeScript, Java, Go, C#, .NET, Go, Python, Ruby. I feel like I'm missing a couple.
Maybe C or C++?
We don't have C or C++ yet. We do have C#. Doing the static analysis for those are pretty challenging. Did I say Go already?
You did.
Okay.
Rust, DB,
I have Rust. Yes, we have Rust.
Java. I'm reading from the
We
web
have Java.
page.
Pardon?
I'm reading from the web page.
Oh yeah, Kotlin. Kotlin was one that we also have. And then we're in the process of working on PHP.
Can I ask a little bit? I don't know how much you can say, but like these languages, some of them are compiled languages, some of them have types, some don't have types, some have, they're all very different. How do you actually understand the code and generate these things? Like, how do you go from the code to this map?
One language at a time. So we use parsers and an abstract syntax tree to be able to try to traverse all of the different ways of analyzing the language, and then we export a custom framework, and then we do some other custom things to make sure that we can add some kind of flavor to be able to make great inferences of how everything is connected. And there's always, within each language, within each framework, there's always like some custom things that we have to do. So for example, like within the JavaScript TypeScript ecosystem, there's React and there's Angular and there's Vue and there's, all of those different things. And so there's like always some custom things that we can do within the language, within the framework. And so we just make those tweaks. And then so for example, recently we just rewrote our Python analyzer because Python does some really silly things when it comes to Python monorepos. And so when you start to, get into larger and larger enterprise companies, those our analyzers kind of off the shelf need to start doing some pretty heavy duty things. And so we just take it one programming language and framework at a time.
So do you deal with multi-threading?
I believe so. And then yeah, I believe we do. Yeah. I think we did that.
I can see how the static analysis fits into this. Can you go into the dynamic analysis a bit more?
Yeah, the dynamic analysis is really helpful for being able, so we to do the cross repository analysis. So we use production level data and distributed tracing to get those cross repository data, because the static analysis within cross repository is not that helpful. So we needed to, our customers were like, well, I can see the code things, but I really need to know how all of these services and things fit together. So we plug into, we use something called OpenTelemetry, or which is a distributed tracing framework, but some APMs have OTel installed in it. And so we can just plug into what's called an OpenTelemetry collector, which is basically a way to export OTel data and send it anywhere that you want, and log data. And we take it and do most APMs, application performance monitoring systems, do two things. They help you debug in production, and they help you find performance bottlenecks, which are helpful in and of themselves. But there's a huge gap in getting an understanding of how your whole system fits together when you're trying to ship code or application code, and when you're trying to refactor something. Performance monitoring doesn't help you in those in those scenarios. So we take similar data, and we also did a custom DD bridge for Datadog specifically that has their own tracing that doesn't use OpenTelemetry. And so we use that data to basically summarize up across all of your different third-party services, your endpoints, your API calls, etc. And then so that you get both the filtering down to find the individual bug, in production, is what observability takes care of, but also we give you the ability to summarize up, giving you this holistic understanding at the highest levels, completely automated, and completely self-updating. So you always know it's a source of truth, as opposed to a dry diagram or a Miro diagram or an actual piece of paper like I had when I was at Docker. I had a 5-year-old hand-drawn architecture diagram on a piece of graph paper, which I needed to use to understand the architecture. So that's kind of what we do at the service map layer. Did that answer your question, Noel?
Yeah, nice. Thanks.
Awesome. Were there any more questions? No?
I'm sure I could go on forever with questions, but I hate to dominate the discussion. So it seems that this is a daunting task. Congratulations on tackling it. How much support have you got for that? Sounds like you have some investors.
Yeah, we're about 13 people, and always too many things to do. Always not enough team members to do it. But when I was at Google, they all also thought the same thing, right? It's Google, and there's that we don't have enough people to do everything that we want to do. So but yeah, it's been a really amazing journey to kind of help all the people hit their productivity goals, because we spend 50% of our time reading and trying to understand the code between onboarding and feature work and debugging and refactoring, etc. And so we're really we can reduce ticket time to merge up to 30% at this point. So we're really, really excited to be able to support the ecosystem like this.
This is really cool. I could totally see how this would, in these big enterprises with huge code base, this is like a real problem. Just ask you a question, since we were talking earlier about like AI, with all the developments now going on in AI, what do you see like the future for you know, maybe your product or things like this, or working on these big code bases? I'm just curious, like maybe 5 years from now, 2, 3 years from now.
Oh yeah, sky's the limit. I'm basically gunning for a full Mission Impossible, like being able to just tell me like exactly what I want and connect to my brain and just spit out everything that's here, and then I can go and lay on the beach. That's basically what I'm hoping that the world goes in 5 years. maybe 10 or 8. But I think that there's the everything is going to change in the next 2 to 3 years for sure. So I'm really excited to kind of be part of that journey, to kind of get into this world of AI and LLMs, because we've been using it, and we've integrated it into our platform in a number of different ways. As I mentioned, like anywhere there's a triple star, you can also ask questions of your service information and your organization level information within your IDE, and then continue to traverse how functions call other functions and see the impacts of those things. And so it's been fantastic to be able to like see even the developments within our own system and our own customer systems, and just the pace of how this is changing everything.
When did you start on that journey?
That's a great question. I feel like it's been an eternity, but it has not been long. I feel like just AI was always supposed to be in the roadmap, since basically we drew our first whiteboard drawing. But we actually did the first integration, I think finished the first integration in June, which feels like an eternity ago, but it was not.
And I assume you have a roadmap for further enhancements.
Absolutely. We're really excited to get so right now the platform is AI powered, and our chat with your code base feature is definitely differentiated from Copilots. We do a number of different things that they don't do. But and we've got lots and lots and lots of ideas of what to do and where to go. But we're trying to essentially get ahead of, well, we haven't understood our code bases from humans writing our code. AI is about to write our code and no human is going to touch it. And so we're trying to get ahead of that game with being able to visualize and really digest a lot of information very, very quickly. Because if code becomes a commodity, the trade-offs that we make as engineers, the ability to reason about and make logical conclusions, that's where the real problem solving is going to come from. If we have tools to be able to help us decipher, collect all that information really, really quickly, because AI is going to abstract all of these different things. It's even going to be even more of a black box. So we're trying to get ahead of that trend.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, because like one of the limitations of like Copilot and all these things is like the context window. Like you can't put your entire code base into like Copilot and say, make a change. But using a tool like yours, maybe you don't need to put the whole code base. You can use your tool with something like Copilot and know what's important and what the impact would be. And then maybe it actually could make these broad sweeping changes.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So a lot of our customers who are using our AI part of the system are using us in conjunction with Copilot, and it's been really fantastic.
Yeah.
Because we don't do the auto completion things. We help you to start asking the right questions of where do I start and where do I go? And then Copilot will, once I start deciphering, okay, what's my plan here? Then Copilot can help you to do the auto completion for what you have in your head. But we're kind of the step before that. Yeah, it's been really, really exciting.
Yeah. Do we have any other questions? from the audience? Maybe Mickey and I could
Oh,
probably
Justin,
keep him
Alan?
talking all night, but it's not fair to you.
Yeah, really. Doug, anybody with any questions for Shanea?
Yeah, I have a couple. You showed
Go for it.
CI in GitHub. Can that be done in GitLab as well?
Yeah, it can.
Okay. And any plans to create a JetBrains plugin?
Absolutely. Very soon, actually. So we were just, I think we're gonna work on that very soon. I've got a brilliant IDE developer on my team who came from Mozilla. And we're really excited to get a JetBrains plugin. Basically, the thing that we need to do right now is write our whole backend in Java. And then we can use our front end to be able to do the JetBrains ecosystem. That's basically the blocker right now. Which is fine. We just need to do that conversion.
Okay,
And
great.
we're really hesitant to make AI do that for us because we wanted to make sure that it works really well.
Oh, I have another question. So you said you
Shoot.
had 13 developers. You're supporting roughly a dozen or 13 languages right now. That's really
Uh-huh.
high productivity. You guys use LLVM or you handcraft all the ASTs or what?
We handcraft the ASTs.
Wow. Wow. Kudos to the team.
Visibility is a real productivity boost. It really does help. We ship, I think we ship 2 to 3 features every week. It's really, really helpful.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking.
So up on your website, you've got a lot of reference materials and the ebooks I saw and a bunch of other things. Want to point us in anything that we should look at there? Want to know more?
Yeah, I mean, if anyone wants to, give us a shout, any of the buttons to book some time with the team, we can like craft some custom. Basically how it works is like everyone usually wants to know what it's like on their code base, right? It's basically the like, yeah, your demos are nice, but I want to know how it looks on my code base. What I was showing you all is actually CodeSee on CodeSee. So I wanted to, why I don't pull up slide decks is I wanted you to actually see like a real working production code base. But most people, if they want to see their own, you can just schedule some time with me or anyone from the team. I still take calls one-on-ones with folks, and if anyone else wants to ask me more questions, this is why we get in. This is why we do this, to talk to developers and make their lives easier. So, yeah, happy to book some time with anybody.
Alan, you're unmuted. You got a question pending? Okay. Well, geez.
Ah,
Oh, Alan, why don't you just type your question here in the chat then, Alan, if you're having trouble with the microphone.
yes, absolutely. We have uh we have a lot of folks who use us for onboarding junior developers, interns, being able to kind of walk people through remote-based collaboration. Everybody needs the visual, but yes, particularly junior folks. That's for absolutely, without question.
One of the things I've always looked for, a tool that would help you do this, is to visualize code base and try to understand the magnitude of the code in various modules. Is there a way to do that with this?
Yeah, I'm trying. Yeah, so the
I think that some are color coded differently than the size or something like
oh
that.
yeah, I was thinking of our automatic insights. We have you're able to, so we have these are custom legend things. It's probably our VS Code extension is pretty stable, so hold on, we don't want to change that all the time. Let me see. Yeah, so we automatic give some insights on like where all the latest commits are happening, where all the latest activities happening, so you can get some insight like where all the biggest files are. And the reason we do that is like when you're trying to get an understanding of where do I start, as a diving in, we can give some of those automatic insights so you can kind of understand the magnitude in that way. You can also understand the magnitude of things just by like the sheer number of dependency lines coming out of something.
When I was up on your website, I looked at your pricing. I was surprised that it seemed modest for the value you could give.
Yeah. So our the business plan is very reasonable, very affordable. Really it's really there for startups who are just trying to get some kind of getting CodeSee installed from the beginning. And then we add AI and function level and service maps on the enterprise plan. They're a little bit more data intensive, but we just price per seat, and very simple pricing. We don't want to complicate developers' lives with any of that other jazz.
Kudos to you.
Thank you. Awesome.
If there's nothing
If
else, I
anyone,
guess we can let you go.
yeah, if anyone else has any questions, if you go to CodeSee.io, there's a purple chat bubble at the bottom of the screen that actually goes to my cell phone. If anyone has any questions, feel free to email or Shanea@CodeSee.io. That's also my email.
Awesome. Thanks again for
Pleasure
being here.
chatting with you. Of course, no problem. Such a pleasure.